just wonder about all these Albanese government ministers flying overseas. How many of them are there abroad at the moment? So, just at this meeting of Pacific Island leaders in Fiji, we had no fewer than 3 ministers there. The Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister, the Pacific Island Minister, Richard Marles over in America. I think the Agriculture Minister's going to Indonesia. They're just... Tanya Plibersek was just in France. Is anyone at home actually minding the shop? Well, anyway, but talking about Fiji, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese today finished this big meeting in Fiji with Pacific leaders with a big win. And you'll be so excited by this news because the Pacific Island leaders all agreed that Australia should host yet another talkfest on global warming. Isn't that just what we need? They backed Labor's campaign to host the next big international climate conference, getting all those leaders jetting in across the globe to Australia, never mind the emissions for them, to say that we're all doomed and we should all wear hair shirts and do whatever it takes.
They all expressed support for the bid, and you'll see that reflected in the communique. And every nation expressed support. They were very enthusiastic about the idea because what it will do is to provide a focus on the very real threat that climate change has to our Pacific Island neighbours. For countries like Tuvalu and Kiribati, it's a threat to their very existence.
Wait a minute there. First, if Albanese is reaching out to the Pacific leaders, that was his big plan, go out there, make friends. Don't you think he should at least learn that it's not Kiribati, but Kiribati, however it's spelled. And neither Kiribati nor Tuvalu, let's talk about these fibs now, neither Kiribati nor Tuvalu face doom at all, face extinction. That's just another Albanese untruth. Even the ABC, how global warming crazy they are, they did a fact check. They had to admit that Tuvalu was not drowning, but actually growing. It had grown by 3%. And the ABC has also admitted, finally, it took me years of telling them they were wrong, that Kiribati is actually one of the Pacific nations that has grown up to 8% in size. Now, I do ask why not a single journalist at that press conference picked up Albanese on his ridiculous falsehoods. Seems to me that lying these days about global warming doom, we're an existential threat, that's absolutely okay. It's telling the truth, I tell you. Telling the truth about global warming, that, friends, is dangerous. But there was one seeming breakthrough in this trip to Fiji. I applaud Albanese. His meeting with the Prime Minister of the Solomon Islands, Manasseh Sogavare, this guy's been treating Australians like dirt and made a deal with China, a secret deal, it's never shown us the details, to help its navy. Well, this meeting with Albanese actually went very well.
Thank you. Very good to meet you, and thank you for the discussion that we've had on the phone about our common interests.
And Sogavare even said, well, this secret deal with China that we're not allowed to see, it didn't mean that he's going to let China build a military base. No way, that's not going to happen, he said. And Albanese said the man's word was good enough for him.
I note that Prime Minister Sogavare has made very positive comments about the engagement that we had. I welcome that. I think you've got to deal with people at face value. I welcome his comments ruling out there being a Chinese base.
Joining me from Fiji is Sky News reporter Jonathan Lee. Jonathan, great to see you again. Our Prime Minister said that we should take the Solomon Islands leader at his word when he says, no, this secret deal with China does not mean that he's going to have a Chinese military base in his country. Should we trust him?
It's a very good question, Andrew. It's very hard to work out if you should trust the word of a person who signed a secret security pact with an authoritarian regime. But Manasseh Sogavare certainly embraced Anthony Albanese with a giant hug, which was, I think, rather unexpected from everyone. He came in with his arms open and said words to the effect, I understand, of, I need a hug. And I think Anthony Albanese was very happy to patch over what has been a tough period of diplomacy. Bear in mind that the Solomon Islands said our relationship had soured. Maybe this buys Mr Sogavare some space to say things have improved while still actually achieving what he wants. It's worth noting he did an interview today, and it's the language which is actually used with our Prime Minister, and said that there will be no military base, no Chinese military base. And for the reason for that is because it would mean that his country would become a target if there was a conflict. And it's worth remembering in history, the Battle of Guadalcanal, well, that was the Solomon Islands. Tens of thousands of people lost their lives there. I think 9,000 Americans for one. So if anyone understands the scale of conflict and the devastation it can bring, it should be the Solomon Islands.
I should imagine so. I think also the fact that there's probably a fair bit of anti-Chinese sentiment among many Solomon Island citizens might also stay his hand a little. What was the big thing to come out of this visit that is actually good for Australia?
Look, I suppose there's two major prongs here that people are talking about, two major issues. On the ground, it's all about climate change. That is what the Pacific Island nations, Polynesians, Micronesians are concerned about. That's not the top issue for Australian diplomats. Obviously, we're chiefly concerned, or at least the media is chiefly focusing also on our security environment. That is probably the more important issue, and the fact that Mr Albanese can walk away from here and say that he has somewhat resolved the issue in the Solomon Islands would certainly be a tick and give him a skip in his step. When it comes to, I suppose, cutting emissions further, there's no doubt that there is an appetite here on the ground for a moratorium on further coal and gas exploration. Mr Albanese told us a short time ago that Australia hasn't been asked to do that. Bear in mind that Scott Morrison previously was. It seems that the leaders here are happy with Mr Albanese's short-term target. That is enough to win them over at the moment. He also wants to have a UN climate summit in Australia, and it appears that they are going to give Mr Albanese their tick of support for that. So he will leave here with some wins. We wait to see the final wording of the communique. It's expected that there will be language here along the lines of the region needs to stick together, that it is a contested sphere. Obviously, that is talking about China, the fact that America is trying to also woo the region back over with a near $1 billion announcement the other day, bringing embassies back to the region, their Peace Corps as well, and trying to re-engage. So there's a lot of security focus here from the United States. And it's important to remember that the United States and China are both dialogue partners. That means that they should have been here at this event, but they were asked to stay away to give the Pacific leaders a chance to talk about the geopolitical environment without their presence. So it was very unusual that America was able to speak via video link and make that announcement. That is clearly a tick in America's box, and something Fiji and Australia were obviously working on behind closed doors.